But the reality is when the church gathers, as a gift that is, and how good that is, man, that's when it makes sense. And so tonight, I know I've met several new people tonight. And there's a great story of somebody who invited someone new last week, and they came and they absolutely loved it. What I'm saying is, people want to be involved in this. They want to be invited into this. They want to belong to this. What's this, the realm? Absolutely not. What's this? It's the church. It's the goodness of gathering. It's the goodness of connecting. It's the goodness of recognizing and being introduced to the Good Shepherd so that life just makes sense. Because what do we learn? We learn that fullness of life only comes through the Good Shepherd. The fullness of life only comes through Christ and Christ alone. People want that. And I think we're poised as a community. And I've said this in podcasts. I don't think I've ever said this on the record on stage before. I think we're poised as a community to fully be ready to accept what God wants to do. Now, when I say that, a sense of me, that's a little terrifying saying that. And that may be even a little terrifying hearing that, because it's like, wait a minute, I believe that as a community, we're just glimpsing what it means to be the church. I believe as a community, and by the way, I love it because it's teenagers, which by the way, for what it's worth, every revolution that's ever begun, that's ever started, always happened with teenagers. Every revolution was carried throughout history, first with teenagers. Because when teenagers get it, they're zealous. When teenagers get it, the vitality of life. When we get the gospel, when we get church, there's an unbelievable movement that takes place. That's one of the reasons why I believe that you're going to be the greatest generation to ever live. That's one of the reasons why I believe that when we get this, when we get the gospel, when we get the goodness of Christ, as it transforms, as it redeems, as it restores, and we find our identity in that, and as we pour out in this natural overflow of worship, the unbelieving world no longer will find the church gimmicky and unbelievable, but will find great value and great worth. Because it's real, it's genuine, it's authentic, and it's not forced, and it's not gimmicky. And that's what they're looking for. They're not looking to be invited into something that's shallow. They're not looking to be invited into something that's lifeless. Church begins way before we step inside this building. Church begins way before we step inside this building. I told our team who's going to Honduras Monday night that if people come to the gathering, if people come and they gather unapologetically in this building on Thursday nights that we call church, if people gather and this is too intense for them, we failed the rest of the week, because as they see our lives, it should be a living representation of this. As we live our lives, as we serve them, as we pray for them, as we lift them up, as we decrease, as we move towards humility, as we move towards the path of the cross, and Christ is lifted up, this should resemble that. The problem is when we show up to Christ, it looks nothing like our lives. When we show up to church, it looks nothing like our lives. But when we get that, church makes sense. And so that's just on the tip of my heart tonight. And I just want to tell you guys, as your shepherd and as your pastor, that I'm proud of you. I am proud of what God is doing and the endless stories. And again, we measure where we're at by the stories that we're hearing. And we're just hearing great stories of what Christ is doing in your life, what Christ is doing in your family's life, and what Christ is doing in your friends' lives. I'm proud that you're proud that you want someone to be a part of this. I'm proud that we're not embarrassed that we show up and we call this church. Isn't it great? Because when I was in high school, I was embarrassed that I went to church. And I had a good student ministry. I think it was called youth group then. I think it's still called youth group. We just don't call it that. I was embarrassed. I would never. I tried year after year after year, and after people said no, they said no, they said no, they said no. I gave up because it became embarrassing. Man, but I love this. I love this, and I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of this expression. And I want to thank you for pressing in, for trusting, for following, and just being faithful week in and week out, week in and week out. And I want to open your imaginations, and I want to invite you to dream with me, because I believe that we're just scratching the surface of what God wants to do through this community. I believe we're just scratching the surface of what God wants to do through this community. And if you allow yourself to be opened up to it, if we allow ourselves to come into deep intimacy, deep proximity, close proximity with Jesus, I believe he wants to do something incredible. I believe he wants to do something of deep worth. And I believe he wants to do something that absolutely blow our minds. That's why Paul writes in Ephesians, to the God who can do immeasurably more than anything that I can ever imagine. That's the God, Ephesians 3:20. That's the God who we're talking about tonight. That's the God who we worship tonight. That's the God who we fall in love with tonight. That's the God who we repent to when we don't understand things. That's the God tonight who can do immeasurably more than anything that we can ever imagine. If we could wrap our minds and our hearts around something big, to the God who can do immeasurably more than that. That's the type of community I want to be involved in. And I've prayed my entire life. I'm 29 years old. I've prayed my entire life on this earth to get a glimpse of the church. 29 years old. I've been brought up in church my entire life, and I haven't seen it yet. As strong. Excuse me. But my entire life, I pray that our graduating seniors, I pray that as you invite friends, I pray that we just give them a glimpse of the church. I pray that we just give them a glimpse of who Jesus is. The Bible says as we lift Christ up, he will draw people to himself, and that's what we're going to do tonight. Let's pray. God, thank you for this moment. God, thank you for this group of students, this group of individuals, this group of people, Father, this community of sheep. Father, I thank you that although we wander and although we're aimless and although there's tension, there's tension to desire things that we shouldn't have and to do things that we shouldn't do, to go places that we shouldn't go. But Father, Lord, you always bring us back. The Good Shepherd goes and he gets his sheep. Father, tonight as this community, I pray, Father, I pray that you open our imaginations, that you open our hearts to the reality that is simply you. Father, we want to take in Jesus. We want to bring in Jesus so that our life will make sense. As we open up the scriptures tonight, Father, I pray that you bring this into technicolor. I pray that you bring this into vivid detail. Father, tonight I pray that you blow our minds, that you open our hearts, and we walk away with a deep picture, a deep reality of who you are. Father, we love you. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your guidance. Thanks for continuously going and bringing us back. And yes, Father, thank you for rescuing us. In the precious name we pray. Amen. Open your Bibles to John chapter 10. We're going to try to get through this tonight. If I keep going off and talking on tangents, there's no way we're going to get through it. So, John chapter 10. We've been in this conversation. If you've never been here before, we call these conversations. We give you the text the week before, and in that we hope and we pray that you just wrestle with it, and you just bang it out, and you just struggle through it, you find success in it, and you find failure, and you find questions in it, and we come back together, and we preach through it. At Origins on Sunday nights, which is our small groups, we hash it out a little bit even further, but we're wrapping up this conversation. We've been in this conversation for four weeks now. It's called the shepherd. This is a massive metaphor that's been used throughout the biblical text over 700 times. It'll come up if you Google sheep and shepherd. Over 700 references you'll see over 700 references. And this is a massive metaphor. And I believe that the metaphor of the shepherd and the metaphor of the sheep's response to the shepherd basically culminates in John chapter 10. So we're going to pick up in John chapter 10, verse 11. Although we preached through this last week, I'm going to re-preach it, and I'm going to go through a little bit deep into nuances here, and then we're going to continue to roll. We're going to try to get through verse 21. You guys ready? Right, two of us. Let's go. John chapter 10, verse 11. I am the good shepherd. Now, what we've been saying over and over and over and over again is this was an absolute, ridiculously offensive thing to say. Jesus, at this point, is literally claiming the role of the shepherd. The role of the shepherd all throughout the biblical text. Literally, this was Jesus saying that I am God. I am claiming the role of the shepherd. I am claiming the role of the good shepherd. I'm claiming the role of the Messiah. It is me who I am here standing in front of you in flesh, God. He's claiming it for himself. He says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. At this moment, this one verse is a clear picture of what it means to see Jesus the way that God intended us to see Jesus. He is the good shepherd. What makes him good? What makes him good, what separates him from all the other shepherds, is that he lays his life down for the sheep. That's what separates him from all other shepherds. Now, all throughout the biblical text, we see shepherds who are risking their lives. They're risking their lives over and over again. We're going to look at one in 1 Samuel in a second. But the shepherds always risk their lives. But Jesus willingly lays his life down. That reality, in and of itself, at that moment, makes Jesus good. He makes him the good shepherd. It's at this point that we begin to understand life. Because he is the good shepherd, because he lays his life down, through his death, we begin to understand life. Through his death, we have an opportunity to fully, 100% understand the fullness of life. And so literally we call this salvation. Back in verse 10, we see that the thief has come to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come to give him life, Jesus says.